Ladies and gentlemen, good morning and welcome to live coverage of the inauguration of Ralph Northam as the 73rd Governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia. I am Bill Miller and I'm proud to be here at Capitol Square with Craig Carper, the news director of WCVE Public Radio, the public radio station here in Richmond, and a longtime former Capitol correspondent for WCVE.
Thanks, Bill.
And we're also happy to be with Larry Sabato, the founder and the director of the Center for Politics at the University of Virginia. Larry, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
Craig, I believe you said this is your fourth inauguration that you've worked.
It is.
And Larry, more inaugurations than you can count, did you say?
Umpteenth, since 1966, every 4 years.
I think I've seen snow flurries in the past couple of minutes develop. That's, I guess, nothing new for an inauguration in the month of January in Virginia?
Better than rain, as we experienced last year. So I would say snow is a marked improvement.
It's cold but invigorating.
Right. Well, I guess we've seen all extremes of weather in January here, so this is relatively normal for this time of year for the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Yes.
It can be worse. It's been as low as 14 degrees, so
right.
This is not too bad.
Right. We're going to be, in a few minutes, we're going to be joining Soraya Wintersmith, also a reporter for WCVE Public Radio. She is in the audience here for the festivities today, and she's planning on speaking with some folks who are here attending. I believe she has landed an interview with some folks who are here for their very first time. What's the general feel of an inauguration? Do you get newcomers for the most part? Or are there returning folks, or what's the routine?
All of the above. You're seeing a lot of familiar faces. I believe every living former governor should be here today. That's tradition. You'll see a lot of electeds, many old and new faces alike. That we've seen significant change in the House of Delegates. We'll see 19 new members, many of them joining us here today, as well as members of the campaign and enthusiastic attendees.
And Craig, a minute ago, you were speaking about the different governors that are all here. You saw three sort of gathered together in front of the governor's mansion.
We saw three on their way out. Outgoing Governor Terry McAuliffe was there chatting with former governor, now Senator Tim Kaine and his family, and in part of his family is former Governor Linwood Holton.
Right.
So they were all getting ready to head down across the portico and take their seats.
And they'll all be here with us for the inaugural festivities today. I believe we are about ready to go over to Soraya Wintersmith, and we'll see who she has lined up for an interview.
Hey, good morning, Bill, Craig, and Larry. We're here on the Capitol South portico. The Northam Administration has estimated that as many as 4,000 people are going to be gathering here so we can observe live and in person the swearing in of a new executive of the Commonwealth. Now, we know Virginians traveled from far and wide to get here today, and some have the Capitol right next to them all the time, and some of them are first-timers, like Liam, who's here with me right now, and Mary, you're a seasoned veteran. It's cold, it's gray. Tell me about why it was important for you all to come out here.
Well, we are good friends with the Northam family. Actually, I grew up on the Eastern Shore, not too far from their house, and so I just wasn't going to miss it.
And Liam, first timer, just like me, I'm a first timer too. Tell me about what it feels like to be out here in person.
It feels good.
You're not cold.
A little bit.
But the excitement is keeping you warm, or do you want to go home now?
I think the excitement's good.
Were you paying attention to campaign politics at all?
No, not really.
No, but you're excited. You're going to go back and tell all your friends that you were here for this.
Yes.
Yeah. And you brought someone else with you, but he is holding down your seats.
Yes, Scott Mewborn, and his wife is my sister, Ann. They're both here, and they wanted to hold our seats because it's getting very crowded now, and we don't want to miss seeing him sworn in.
And why don't you tell all the people at home, like the next time that they want to come, is there a strategy for keeping warm just in case it's cold again?
Yes, warm socks and boots and hats, gloves, and we walked around a bit before we sat down. Sitting down makes it colder.
All the basics here. Back to you guys.
Soraya, thank you very much. We'll be coming back to you later in this morning's broadcast for some more conversations with attendees here at today's inauguration. Gentlemen, we were talking before we came on the air this morning about the big changes that have taken place and that are taking place right now here at the Capitol. Prior to last fall's election, Republicans in the House of Delegates held a 66 to 34 seat majority. As of right now today, pending further changes, I guess, they hold a 2-seat majority and a similar 2-seat majority in the Senate of Virginia. What does that portend for the days and weeks to come?
Well, we're still figuring it out. Everybody's very cordial at the moment. There was a nice, warm speech about bipartisanship from Delegate Lee Ware yesterday, which was well received. But it's the early days of session, so we'll see once bills start going through committees how what this new spirit of cooperation looks like. And there's many new women, I believe. We had 15 new Democrats sworn in, 4 new Republicans, but now a quarter of the legislature, that's House and Senate, is represented by women, and I believe that's slightly, we're right up now to the national average. Is that correct, Larry?
Yes, we've come up to the national average. Look, there's always a spirit of bipartisanship on Inauguration Day. It rarely lasts. And it won't this time, obviously, because the House and Senate are so closely divided between the parties, and this is an extremely partisan era, a very polarized era. A lot of it has to do with President Trump. So it's kind of inevitable that you're going to have a lot of fights between Democrats and Republicans. Having said that, I think Governor Northam is well liked and well respected on both sides. And I've already had a number of Republicans say to me that they think they can do business with him. Of course, I've heard this before, but that's what they say.
Well, is it because they have worked with him? He's been a legislator for a number of years. Do they feel that because of that connection, which perhaps they didn't have with Governor McAuliffe, that there is that greater likelihood or possibility at least?
That's part of it. Part of it is that Northam is also moderate. I'd say moderate liberal. As we found out in the campaign, he voted for President Bush twice in 2000 and 2004. So this is somebody that Republicans can work with, but Democrats also are very confident in him.
Speaking of the changing face of the Capitol, we have a feature that Roberta Fountain has prepared for us, and we'll send you over to that now.
The General Assembly created the Virginia Women's Monument Commission in 2010 with a resolution that charged us to determine and recommend an appropriate monument in Capitol Square to commemorate the contributions of the women of Virginia. So we immediately went to work, held meetings around the state to gather the public's thoughts about what and whom should be represented. Today we celebrate the groundbreaking for the first phase of the monument, the Memorial Plaza. First, I want to recognize the women in uniform. They represent the collective achievements of the women that will be honored in this Memorial Plaza by proudly representing our armed forces and first responders, professions that once excluded women. We thank them for their service and dedication, as well as being living proof of just how far women have come. This monument is the brainchild of M. Bowles Locker Alsop of Richmond. Mrs. Alsop was a model and director of a prestigious modeling school, a public relations consultant, and a preservationist. And she knew that women's accomplishments often went overlooked. So she gathered some of her friends and fought for a monument to women in Capitol Square. Mrs. Alsop passed away in 2015. But I'm proud to stand here as we break ground on this monument that meant so much to her and to so many others. I'm proud to look out into this crowd and see young girls who will grow up knowing that Virginia values and honors their contributions.
Today we're to recognize women from some of the first settlers of our great Commonwealth going back to the early 1600s and the hardships that they had all faced, to the pioneers in banking and other areas of commerce which have been so important. I think it's appropriate that we here in Virginia are leading the way once again Out front, this will be the first time a monument of its type, representing many different centuries of women's contributions to our great Commonwealth, will ever have been put on Capitol grounds of any of the 50 state capitals in the United States of America. And now we are going to lead the nation to show here in Virginia we respect the contribution of women and what they have made to this Commonwealth and to this country. Thank you very much.
The new Women's Monument here at the Capitol of Virginia, here on the Capitol grounds, part of the, as we've been saying, the changing face of the Capitol. The Women's Monument joins the new Native American Monument that probably should be mentioned.
That's right. The new Native American Monument is, I believe, under construction now. It will be titled the Mantle, and it's all part of a bit of restructuring and construction happening now. We've relocated Edgar Allan Poe for the Women's Monument. Barbara Johns was included in a statue up there recently, as well as just down the street, the Attorney General's office was renamed in her honor. Barbara Johns was she was the first young woman to attend an integrated school.
Well, what kind of change does that represent? These new monuments, how many, and what are the nature of the other monuments on the grounds here that they join?
Well, Virginia obviously used to be a very, very conservative state. It was part of the Old South. And for many, many years, the only monument that I can remember on the Capitol grounds was for Harry F. Byrd Sr., the former governor and senator who ran the machine that ran Virginia for many, many decades. Very conservative gentleman. So Virginia has diversified, and it's good to see that those who overcame massive resistance, Barbara Johns, and women who were almost completely unrepresented in the General Assembly when I first came here. I believe there were two women, in both houses of the General Assembly combined. And of course, when Doug Wilder was elected the first African-American member of the state Senate, it was like a lightning bolt had struck the Capitol. Fortunately, we've moved well beyond this, and we'll continue to move.
We are standing by. We expect to go inside the Capitol for the key ceremony, where the key is transferred. The key to the governor's mansion is transferred from the outgoing governor to the incoming governor. That's a relatively recent piece of traditional history around here, as I understand it.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll defer to Larry on the history of the key ceremony.
Well, this obviously you don't really need keys to get in and out of the governor's mansion. There are quite a number of the Executive Protection Unit members who are around to protect the governor and members of his family. But it's just a ceremony to suggest the change that we're seeing in the governor's mansion and in the governorship generally.
Larry, you were speaking earlier about the way this ceremony has changed over the years. We can see a lot more security around us, perhaps more attendees. I'm not sure about that, but what are some of the other things that have changed over perhaps 20 or 30 years?
Well, you put your finger on the one that I think is most significant: security. Again, I can remember inaugurals where there would be maybe a state trooper posted at each entrance. Where not everybody had tickets. There were areas for the general public. Now, today, I had a hard time getting here. There were so many streets closed, and it was extremely difficult to get in. It's all necessary. Clearly, in this day of terrorism, you have to plan for these sorts of things. As a result, you don't see what you saw, for example, at Doug Wilder's inauguration in 1990, when you had tens of thousands, really hundreds of thousands of people crowded on the Capitol grounds to witness that piece of history. People can't get in. You have to be ticketed. You have to go through security. It's a long process, particularly when it's cold.
You spoke about Doug Wilder's inaugural. That reminds me was that not the only inaugural that took place on the north side of the Capitol?
Yes, it was to accommodate more people, and it was absolutely needed. I've never seen so many people, and it's the only inaugural I've ever been to, national or state, that had more than half of the participants being African American. It was very moving.
So the inaugural, typically, traditionally, or universally, with that one exception, on the south portico, sort of facing down towards the James River.
And except 2006,
right,
when the Capitol was under renovation. That was my first inaugural, and we were down in Williamsburg for that, in front of the original state capitol, where it was also a rainy, cold day. Tim Kaine, Bill Bowling, and Bob McDonnell took the oath of office as governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general. Outside of that, I believe every single one has been here.
Yes.
So a more traditional setting here for us this year, and I would say also a more traditional situation in which Virginia has reverted to electing a governor that is of the party that's not in power in the White House.
The old Virginia curse, which dates back to LBJ. That was a reaction to what was going on in civil rights and a lot of racial issues. And LBJ famously said, "We've lost the South for a generation." And since then, whoever was in the White House, the member of the opposite party, would be elected governor. That was, of course, until 2013, when Governor Terry McAuliffe broke that tradition, and now it appears maybe we have returned to it. I'm not sure.
Well, it went from 1977 to 2009. That was a lot of elections, but it really wasn't a curse. It isn't an iron rule of politics, and it was broken in 2013. I think it'll be broken again, but for the most part, I think you're going to see that when you have a controversial president in office, like President Trump, you're going to see a reaction in many, many states, Virginia and New Jersey being examples from last November.
Craig, we were speaking earlier about the fact that the eyes of the nation are, in a sense, on Virginia today, because it's one of only two states that has elections in the year after the president is elected, the gubernatorial elections.
It's us in New Jersey that have off-year elections, and our tradition dates back, at least the modern electoral cycle dates back to just after the Civil War, where we have followed the year after. Before that, it gets complicated, and I know Larry wasn't there, but he's familiar with
No, I was. I remember that well, absolutely. No question about it. But I will say this, the reason it's been kept is because it suits certain interests. They want to separate it from national politics. That's why we have it.
We are going to go back to Soraya Wintersmith of WCVE News, who has another interview lined up for us. Some microphone problems there. We'll hope to get back to Soraya in just a couple of minutes. Gentlemen, we were talking about the off-year nature, so to speak, of Virginia's elections. Did we cut away too early before we had a chance to talk about why that's significant?
Larry was saying it suits certain interests.
The establishment, mainly, whatever the establishment is, Democrat or Republican, because in an off-year race, off year, you're going to have lower turnout. Well, who turns out? It's the people most directly involved, and those people tend to support the people who are in power because they're part of it. So that has generally been the way it's worked out. Not every year, but most years.
And Virginia likes the attention.
Well, I think it's a great thing. I'm all for it.
We'll take it. And I understand now that we are ready to go back to Soraya Wintersmith. Soraya?
Pardon my technical difficulties. We're back again on the Capitol South portico now. And here with me this time is Mrs. Shelton, Mrs. Butler, and Mrs. Winfrey. I understand that two of you are first-timers.
Yes, we are first-timers, too.
Tell me about why it was important to be out here this time.
It was very important because we're out here for the inauguration of three extraordinary men in Dr. Ralph Northam, Justin Fairfax, and also the Attorney General, Mark Herring. I work for the governor-elect, who will be the governor today, and I really enjoyed it. He's a wonderful person.
Excellent. Thanks so much. Back to you guys.
The incoming and the outgoing governor are both present for the key ceremony, so we'll go inside the Capitol and follow those proceedings.
Great, how you been? Well, I think with this video, guys.
Yeah, crazy. Look at this thing. It doesn't tip over on us.
Not a lot to be, not a lot of formality regarding the key transfer ceremony.
No, sometimes there is, but this was less formal because they're friends. Obviously, they're both Democrats, and Northam has worked with McAuliffe for 4 years, and the first and second ladies know one another. So this was kind of informal and quick, and we thank them for that.
I think I remember Tim Kaine telling a story a few years ago about how he lost the key.
He might have, but it doesn't make any difference. They still let the governor into the governor's mansion.
Right, and always, as I guess we've said before, the governor's always preceded wherever he goes by security personnel, so that actually having a key to the door is
superfluous.
Yes, right.
What strikes me here is that we're seeing very much a continuation from the McAuliffe to the Northam administration. That's not always the case. Typically, you'll see people changing up between administrations, a lot of new faces, especially when it's one party to the other. Northam is keeping several cabinet members in place and many of the support staff, so there'll be some continuity here. Virginia does not, in Virginia, a governor cannot succeed himself, but many saw this as essentially a second term for the McAuliffe administration.
One other element of the changing face of the Capitol, the changing face of government here in Virginia, is the election of Justin Fairfax, and we have a feature prepared on that race.
Well, I've been very blessed and fortunate to come from a wonderful, strong, loving family. My mom primarily raised myself and my three siblings, so I have two great parents, but when I was about 5 or 6, they got divorced, and so what that meant was that my mom had to find a place to start over with her 4 children. I was the youngest of those 4. That place, fortunately for us, was with my late maternal grandparents. They did something really amazing, and they took all 5 of us into their home. And that act of love and generosity really changed the entire course of our lives. So that's really where I come from, and that's really why I'm so passionate about public service, about giving people the same shot to achieve the American dream in their lives, no matter where they start, no matter what bumps in the road they encounter, but they still get a chance to rise, and that's something I'm very passionate about. I've had the privilege of working in the legislative, executive, and judicial branches of government throughout my career. I worked in between undergrad and law school in the U.S. Senate for a senator from North Carolina. I later, after law school, clerked for a federal judge, Judge Gerald Bruce Lee, the U.S. District Court in Virginia. And wonderfully, Judge Lee is actually set to swear me in to be lieutenant governor. So it kind of was a full circle moment in that regard. And I also have worked in the executive branch. I was a federal prosecutor at the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Eastern District of Virginia. So those experiences really have given me some great insights and perspectives, and I think that they will serve me and us very well presiding over the Virginia Senate as lieutenant governor. Governor Doug Wilder was always an inspiration to me. He's given me some great advice over the years, and I'm actually proud to say that he is planning to sit with me at inauguration. So it really will be a very special moment and a special time. So I'm excited about that. It's really fitting and special that I will, as Lieutenant Governor, be sitting in the Oliver Hill building. And of course, Oliver Hill, just a champion for civil rights and for creating opportunities. And I'm now walking through doors that he and others opened, and I'm so grateful, and I'm always mindful that I stand on the shoulders of giants. But in Virginia, we have so many great leaders to look at. We live in just a wonderful commonwealth which has such a rich history. The place that is the birthplace of American slavery is also the place that elected the first African American to be governor. And it shows that, as Dr. King said, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. And I believe also that it takes people to bend it. I'm so proud of my dear friend, Dr. Ralph Northam, and look forward to working hand in hand with him on important issues affecting our state, growing our economy, expanding Medicaid, making student loan debt something that's less burdensome for people, getting people middle skill jobs through workforce development training and apprenticeship programs, and Those are some of the things that we have focused on, really giving people a shot at the American dream. And there are so many things that people feel are not possible. So we're really fighting to give them that economic security and opportunity, and it's something I'm very, very passionate about. People care in many respects about the same things. They want a better life for themselves, but also for their children and their grandchildren. They want them to have that shot at the American dream and to be healthy and get a high-quality education. And as you start to dig down, you learn that there's so much that ties us together. And if we highlight those things that really we all care about, I think that then we can make progress. So our message was the same everywhere we went. About economic security and opportunity. I believe we now have a mandate for that kind of positive vision to really try to make sure that all of us can rise together. I really am hopeful that we get to come together, work together, put the interests of Virginians first and Virginians' families to give people those opportunities. And I think it's going to be a great session and a great 4 years.
Feature by Justin Fairfax as we prepare for the inauguration of Ralph Northam as the 73rd governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia. Gentlemen, we have just a couple of more minutes before the festivities begin. And as I understand it, Larry, we've spoken about how the surrounding nature of the festivities have changed over the years, but I believe I have read that the inauguration itself is largely unchanged for 100 years.
That's Virginia, isn't it? That sounds very much like Virginia. Virginia as a Commonwealth has been changing dramatically. We see that in the election results. But tradition still matters a lot here. And you just don't change anything unless you have a compelling reason to do so. So, yes, I recognize the ceremony from top to bottom. Nothing's changed.
Well, give us a quick run through. What are our audience members, what should they expect to see in the next hour and a half?
Well, I think the highlight, obviously, is the swearing in of the governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general. But I think the inaugural address at any inauguration is important because the governor has had a chance to think about that for several months. He's worked on it. His staff has worked on it. Usually you don't have that kind of time for a speech. So it really does set the tone. It sets the tone for your term, or certainly for your first session of the General Assembly.
The governor will make another address in just a couple of days to a joint session, which in fact this is a joint session of the General Assembly. How will that speech differ from this one?
The General Assembly speeches tend to be laundry lists of the very specific things that are important. It's good to do that, but generally you sketch out in broad brushed tones what you plan to do in an inaugural address. That's the first time most people will see you not in an election context. So they're very different speeches. Ralph Northam is more of a policy guy. He may actually shine more at the speech before the General Assembly next week than he does in an inaugural, but we'll see.
Craig, you've known Dr. Northam as a legislator you've been reporting on his work and the work of the legislature for some time. What do you expect to see in his address today?
I have not seen Governor-elect Northam make a lot of lengthy policy speeches or a speech much like this in the past. He's a very down-to-earth guy. I've always said that he reminds me of my grandfather. He's just a friendly, warm person, but he's very. He's a bright guy. He knows a lot about policy, and I think that he's understated. It'll be a different tone than what we've seen from Governor Terry McAuliffe, who is a big personality. But I think he'll be trying to strike a warm tone, a bipartisan tone, and a conciliatory tone.
We'll be looking forward to that. Thank you, Craig Carper and Larry Sabato. You are watching live coverage of the inauguration ceremony of Governor Ralph Northam from the state capitol in Richmond. Thanks for watching us, and we invite you to stay tuned for the inaugural festivities, which will begin in just a moment. Hello and welcome to the inauguration of Governor-elect Ralph Northam, who will be the 73rd governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia. We're here live at the state capitol grounds in Richmond. I'm Bill Miller, and I'm happy to be joined by Craig Carper, the news director of WCVE, Richmond's public radio station. And Craig, I should point out, is also a longtime Capitol correspondent for WCVE. We're also proud to be joined by Larry Sabato, the founder and director of the Center for Politics at the University of Virginia. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
It's a big event. It's only the 73rd time we've done this. It's only the first time I've done it. You guys have been here a few more times than that. Craig, this is your fourth inaugural festivities. And Larry, a few more than that for you.
Starting in 1966, but don't tell anybody.
Well, what keeps you coming back?
Oh, I love these days, whether they're presidential or Virginia governor inaugurations. People are in a good mood. They're hopeful. The glass is half full, not half empty. And it's good to see that. And there's more bipartisanship on one day than you'll see in the rest of the four-year term, unfortunately.
Craig, what are your first thoughts as we begin this new page in Virginia government?
It's an interesting time. We've got a House that is more evenly divided than it has been in years. It's a 51-49 split with Republicans barely holding on to their majority. The Senate is in control, GOP control, again by similar margins, just separated by 2 seats. And you've got, after what was a nasty campaign by 2 guys that are really more understated and really, I think, more bipartisan than the campaign would have us understand. And I think right now we're at a moment where people are in the mood to turn down the rhetoric a bit and work together, and we'll see how long that lasts.
What's different about Ralph Northam? He's a doctor. Does that set him apart from?
He is a pediatric neurologist. He succeeds Governor Terry McAuliffe, a big personality who had worked for his adult life in professional politics. So he comes from a bit of a different background. Northam a bit more, or significantly more understated than Terry McAuliffe, but they are of the same party. Their cabinets look similar. They have held on to many of the same support staff for their administration. So I think you will see a bit of a continuation of McAuliffe area policies, but I'm guessing a significant departure in style.
And Governor-elect Northam grew up on the Eastern Shore. Does that set him apart from some other governors?
Well, he's a Virginian. He's a native Virginian, and we've had governors now from New York and Minnesota and Connecticut and Pennsylvania. So we haven't had a native Virginian, I guess, since Jim Gilmore, and Doug Wilder was also a native Virginian. But we've had a lot of governors who were born elsewhere. Not that that's a bad thing. But Ralph Northam has a Virginia accent. He is from a rural past. He went to VMI. That's why he's probably able to have more of a conversation about policy with conservatives and with Republicans. And after all, as you mentioned, they're still in charge of both houses. Barely, but they're still in charge. And if they stick together, they can kill all his programs. He's got to peel a few of them off.
We've been talking about changes. The cabinet of the governor will be a majority women cabinet for as I understand it, the second time in history.
The second time. Former Governor John Belials had a majority female cabinet. Right. It was a smaller cabinet at the time. I believe the cabinet's about twice the size it was back in that era. But he's definitely, I think, making a statement, and he's doing that in his cabinet choices, and I believe also in some of the policy he will intend to advance.
Well, Craig, Larry, thank you very much. We're going to sit back and prepare to watch the inaugural festivities. It's the inauguration of Ralph Northam, the 73rd governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Sergeant at Arms.
Mr. President, the majority leader of the Virginia House of Delegates and member of the Virginia General Assembly Inaugural Committee, the Honorable Fee Todd Gilbert.
The delegate from Shenandoah, Delegate Gilbert.
Mr. President,
it is my honor to present His Excellency, the Governor of the Commonwealth, the Honorable Terrence R. McAuliffe, and the First Lady of Virginia.
Delegate from Shenandoah, Delegate Gilbert.
Mr. President, it is my honor to present the members of the General Assembly Inaugural Committee.
Delegate from Shenandoah, Delegate Gilbert.
Mr. President, on behalf of the Inaugural Committee, I have the honor to present the Attorney General-elect, the Honorable Mark R. Herring and family.
Delegate from Shenandoah, Delegate Gilbert.
Mr. President, on behalf of the inaugural committee, I have the honor to present the Lieutenant Governor-elect, the Honorable Justin E. Fairfax and family.
Delegate from Shenandoah, Delegate Gilbert.
Mr. President, on behalf of the inaugural committee, I have the honor to present the Governor-elect, the Honorable Ralph S. Northam and family.
Joint Assembly will come to order. America the Beautiful will now be performed by Larry Bland and the Volunteer Choir of Richmond under the direction of Mr. Larry Bland. Joint Assembly will rise and be led in prayer by the Reverend Kelvin F. Jones, pastor, First Baptist Church, Cateville. Remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and the singing of our national anthem, the Star Spangled Banner.
Let us bow. Dear Heavenly Father, into whose presence our soul takes delight, we invite you to this joyous and sacred moment in the history of the Commonwealth of Virginia. We desire your presence today and throughout the coming days, weeks, months, and years of this administration. We ask that you guide this administration as it leads Virginians to the way ahead. God, we ask that you will allow them to be the city, the state that sits on a hill, for others to see and follow as we emulate the way ahead, through diversity, inclusivity, and bipartisanship. Father, I beseech you to touch the hearts of the General Assembly of Virginia. Allow them to put aside partisan politics, self-aggrandizement service, but in every decision let them remember what is at stake for every Virginian, regardless of ethnicity, gender, or their socioeconomic status. Gracious Father, we thank you for this auspicious moment in the history of the Commonwealth of Virginia, as it has elected its first governor from the Eastern Shore in 162 years. Holy Father, we invoke your blessings upon Governor-elect Northam. Allow him to always seek wise counsel as he deliberates and ponders decisions that will impact all Virginians. Guide his thoughts and order his steps. Bless his wife Pam, his children Aubrey and Wes. Be a fence of protection around them. We pray for Justin and his family as he embraces the gavel of leadership and sanction him to be a drum major for justice. Father, we pray for Mark that he will continue to do justice and love mercy. And Father, during times of adversity, grant this administration the courage of David as they encounter their Goliaths. I pray this administration will not be encumbered by division or discord, while aggressively pursuing an agenda which transforms the lives of the citizens of this great Commonwealth. Let them always focus on health care, a fair living wage, a thriving economy, and superb education for all. In closing, we pray that well-being, prosperity, and viability of this great Commonwealth of Virginia. We pray that Governor-elect Northam, Lieutenant Governor-elect Fairfax, Attorney Governor-elect Herring will hearken to the resounding statement, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country and the Commonwealth of Virginia. It is in the majestic, marvelous name of our Creator that we ask you to hear this prayer and grant our petition. Amen.
Please join me in welcoming the Boys and Girl Scouts of the All Dulles Area Muslim Society, Sterling, who will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. The Star Spangled Banner will now be performed by Keith Ball, Grove Baptist Church, Portsmouth.
Oh, say, can
Assembly and guests please be seated. The oath of office will now be administered to the Attorney General-elect, the Honorable Mark R. Herring, by the Honorable Thomas D. Bourne, retired judge, 20th Judicial Circuit of Virginia.
After me, I, Mark R. Herring, do solemnly swear. I, Mark R. Herring, do solemnly swear. That I will uphold and defend. That I will uphold and defend. The Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of Virginia. The Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of Virginia. And that I will faithfully and impartially. And that I will faithfully and impartially. Discharge the duties incumbent upon me. Discharge the duties incumbent upon me as the Attorney General of the Commonwealth. As the Attorney General of the Commonwealth, to the best of my ability. To the best of my ability. So help me God. So help me God. The oath of office will now be administered to the Lieutenant Governor-elect, the Honorable Justin E. Fairfax, by the Honorable Gerald Bruce Lee, retired judge, 19th Judicial Circuit of Virginia. Raise your right hand. I, Justin Fairfax.
I, Justin Fairfax.
Solemnly swear.
Solemnly swear.
That I will support the Constitution of the United States.
That I will support the Constitution of the United States.
And the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Virginia.
And the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Virginia.
And that I will faithfully.
And that I will faithfully.
And impartially discharge.
And impartially discharge.
All the duties incumbent upon me.
All the duties incumbent upon me.
As Lieutenant Governor of Virginia.
As Lieutenant Governor of Virginia.
According to the best of my ability.
According to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
The oath of office will now be administered to the Governor-elect, the Honorable Ralph S. Northam, the Honorable Glenn E. Tyler, retired judge, 2nd Judicial Circuit of Virginia.
Yes, sir, I am.
I, Ralph Shearer Northam, do solemnly swear
I, Ralph Shearer Northam, do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Virginia,
and the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Virginia,
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge
all of the duties incumbent upon me
all of the duties incumbent upon me
as Governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia
as Governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia
to the best of my ability, so help me God.
to the best of my abilities, so help me God.
Present to the sovereign people of Virginia, the new Governor of the Commonwealth, His Excellency Ralph S. Northam.
Mr. Speaker, Lieutenant Governor Fairfax, Attorney General Herring, members of the General Assembly, justices of the Supreme Court, Judge Tyler, honored guests, Pam, Aubrey, Webb, my fellow Virginians, I am truly humbled that you have taken the time to be with us on such a special day for our Commonwealth. Today, we carry out the peaceful transition of power. Americans invented this ritual. It dates to our earliest days as a country. It makes us American. And at this hour, more than 1.3 million Americans protect this right. They serve in our armed forces overseas and right here at home. They put their lives on the line to protect our way of life, and we should always be grateful for their sacrifice. Please join me in thanking them for their service. If you ask the men and women who serve why they step forward, the answer is often the same. I volunteered because it was my duty. Virginians understand that because our Commonwealth was founded on public service. But the way ahead hasn't always been smooth. In a church on a hill 15 blocks from here, Virginia's first elected governor helped launch the American Revolution when he cried, "Give me liberty or give me death." But at the bottom of that same hill, one of the country's largest slave trading markets was coming to life, a place where Virginians would sell men, women, and children for profit. Our history is complex in Virginia. It includes good things and bad, but no other place on earth can claim it. This unique heritage endows us with a responsibility to shape the future, to leave this place better than we found it. That's the Virginia way. It's a model that Governor Terry McAuliffe and his wife Dorothy have followed these past 4 years. Virginia is better off today because of them, and Pam and I are proud to have been their partners. 200,000 new jobs, $20 billion in capital investment, voting rights restored for 173,000 Virginians. $10 million more school breakfasts served to children who need them. First state in the nation to functionally end homelessness among veterans. That's a record to be proud of, and I'm ready to build upon it. The McAuliffe administration has been about putting the needs of the people you serve first. Those values define my upbringing from the earliest days I can remember. My mother taught children who were learning English as their second language how to read. She worked in health care, nursing sick people back to health on Virginia's Eastern Shore. She volunteered with the hospice, comforting people in their final hours. She taught me that no matter who we are or where we come from, we are all equal in the beginning and the end. My father, who grew up on a farm on the Eastern Shore, served in the Navy during World War II, a member of America's greatest generation. He became a Commonwealth's attorney and a judge, just as his father had before him. Before my brother joined the Navy and I joined the Army, my father always encouraged us to play sports. I think he knew we would learn the importance of teamwork and the fundamental truth that success isn't about one person's individual contributions. It's about the team. Watching the things my parents did for our family and for our community taught me a lot growing up. But the greatest lesson I learned came from watching how they did those things. Their humble and steady service to the people around them taught me what strength looks like. It taught me that you don't have to be loud to lead. I was blessed to grow up on Virginia's Eastern Shore and call it my home. As a kid, I spent hours behind our house crabbing and fishing on the beautiful Chesapeake Bay. To this day, that is where I find peace. When I was just old enough to take to the water myself, my dad helped me build a rowboat and launch it with strict instructions: stay close to home. As I grew and became more comfortable, I began to take longer trips away from the shore until I was ready to head out into the open water. I remember standing with my father as I prepared to embark, and like all good dads, he knew I was nervous even before I did. He said, "Ralph, remember, when you get out there, you can always trust your compass. If things get dark or foggy, if you can't find your way, keep your eye on the compass. It'll always bring you home safely." He was right about that compass. As I got older and took various jobs on the water, working on a deep-sea fishing boat and as the captain of a ferry to Tangier Island, I came to trust that compass to guide me when the way ahead was not clear. My dad's advice stayed with me when I reached the Virginia Military Institute and was given a different kind of compass. In the simple words of the VMI Honor Code, a cadet would not lie, cheat, steal, nor tolerate those who do. Those words have stuck with me all these years because they're so clear. They have become a kind of moral compass for me. They always call me back home safely. Virginia and this country need that more than ever these days. It can be hard to find our way in a time when there's so much shouting, when nasty, shallow tweets take the place of honest debate, and when scoring political points gets in the way of dealing with real problems. If you felt that way, I want you to listen to me right now. We are bigger than this. We all have a moral compass deep in our hearts, and it is time to summon it again because we have a lot of work to do. We're going in the wrong direction on health care in Virginia and America. More people need coverage, not less. It is past time for us to step forward together and expand Medicaid to nearly 400,000 Virginians who need access to care. We should also resolve together today to refrain from any effort to curtail a woman's constitutional right to make her own decisions about her health. If we are going to build a healthier Virginia for everyone, we must address the public health crisis of gun violence. Gunshots kill more people in Virginia every year than car accidents. But if you walk into the right gun show, it's easier to get a firearm than it is to rent a car. I'm ready to work with you to make Virginia safer by passing smart reforms that keep guns away from people who shouldn't have them. We have to acknowledge that the incredible economic progress we have made in Virginia has been uneven. As technology companies and skyscrapers rise in many regions, other parts of Virginia are watching blue-collar jobs move out while the opioid crisis moves in. And those challenges are not limited to rural areas. In far too many places in Virginia, your zip code determines not how well you will do, but also how long you will live. Here in our capital city, a child born 2 miles that way can expect to live to about age 63. But a child born 5 miles in that direction can expect to live 20 years longer. You don't have to be a doctor to know that something's wrong. The solutions to these problems are not easy, but we do know what they are. The way ahead starts with access to quality health care and public education for every Virginian, no matter whom they are or where they live. It depends on smart interventions in the case of addiction or mental health challenges, and a focused economic development strategy that connects the right people with the right skills and the right jobs. As governor, I will approach these challenges with the same skills I learned as a doctor. Over the years, I have taken care of thousands of children. Never once have they or their families asked me if I'm a Democrat or a Republican, nor have I asked them. Each patient is a person in front of you who's sick, a child who needs your help, and who deserves every opportunity to thrive. Doctors are taught that we have a responsibility to do everything we can to make them better. A good doctor trusts science and brings no preconceived notions to the examining table. A good doctor listens first to what a patient is saying and not saying. A good doctor understands that a symptom may have a hidden cause. The pain in a child's belly could be an ulcer, for example, or it could be from hunger because the pantry at home is bare and the last time she ate was at school lunch yesterday. We learn quickly that the problems patients are having are usually more complex than the symptoms we can see on the surface. And getting them back to health means devoting the time and resources it takes to alleviate those root causes. As governor, I will draw on these lessons. I will remember that Virginians didn't send us here to be Democrats or Republicans. They sent us here to solve problems. I will remember that no one has a monopoly on good ideas. The path to progress is marked by honest give and take among people who truly want to make life better for those around them. I will remember that treating symptoms or problems may be easy in the short run, but getting to the root of the problem and solving it from the bottom up is always more effective in the long run. When we make decisions, we will apply this test. Does this action do the most good for the most Virginians? Have we been transparent with the public about what we are doing and why we are doing it? And finally, is there a better way forward that we haven't yet considered? The guiding principle of this administration will be simple. We will work together to make our Commonwealth work better for all Virginians, no matter who they are or where they're from. We cannot rest until every family and every community has the same access to opportunity that others do. Here are my personal commitments to you. I will always tell the truth. I will strive every day to maintain the trust you placed in me on Election Day. I will always put Virginia's interests first. I will work with anyone whose policies help Virginia, and when they do not, I will oppose them. I will visit every city and county while I'm governor and every public college and university. I will continue to personally care for patients at RAM, Virginia's remote area medical clinic, and keep pushing to cover more and more Virginians. I will be there personally to welcome Virginia National Guardsmen and women when they return home from overseas. And my door will always be open to you. Here's the last commitment I make to you, and it's the most important. It comes from an experience that has shaped the way I practice medicine and public service. Shortly after I left the Army and began practicing as a child neurologist, I met a young couple whose son was living with severe autism. I examined the little boy, and his case was tough. So I explained to his mother that nothing I could do would alter her son's condition or improve his quality of life. Well, more than a decade later, a woman approached me in the grocery store. She reminded me that I had seen her son years ago and that she and her family chose not to return for a follow-up. She asked me if I knew why they had not returned, and I confessed to her that I did not and that I hadn't really thought much about it. She looked me in the eye and said, "Dr. Northam, when you said you couldn't help us, you took away our hope." I can still hear her words to this day. When I told her that I was unable to help her son, I diagnosed the problem correctly, but I missed the opportunity to provide the one thing her family still needed the most, and that was hope. From that moment on, I have recognized the incredible power of hope and my responsibility to preserve it in the people I serve. Hope is not just a source of comfort for the afflicted. It is a wellspring of energy to fight for a better tomorrow, no matter the odds. I am committed as your governor to fight every day for the hope that tomorrow will bring, for all of us, not just some of us, because it can be. If we work together, tomorrow can be better for the nearly 400,000 Virginians who are one illness or accident away from bankruptcy because they have no insurance. Tomorrow can be better for the families in rural communities who are praying for new jobs so their children don't have to move away to build happy lives. Tomorrow can be better for the children who are sitting in crowded and crumbling schools across this state, tired and distracted from too little food and too much violence in their communities. Tomorrow can be better for the men and women who depend on clean air and water for their livelihood, and for the children who will inherit the environment we pass on to them. Tomorrow can be better for people who too often face discrimination, harassment, or violence because of their race, gender, religion, or sexual orientation. If we work together today, tomorrow will be better for all of the Virginians who have placed their trust in us to fight for them every day. This country is once again looking to Virginia to lead the way. Let us lead with humility and optimism, telling the truth, learning from history, and removing every obstacle to progress for all Virginians. Let us rely on the compass we all carry to show us the way ahead. I ask you to join me. Let's get to work. Thank you so much.
Members and guests, please be seated. Please welcome members of Virginia's 11 Indian tribes as they present a blessing dance to honor Governor Northam and bless the Capitol grounds with best wishes for a successful administration and stronger ties between Virginia's indigenous people and the Commonwealth. As part of the tradition, all those able to stand are asked to do so during the blessing. Right here, microphone. Please rise for the benediction, which will now be offered by Rabbi Michael Knopf, Temple Beth El, Richmond.
Ribono Shel Olam, Majesty of space and time, bless and protect our new governor, Ralph Northam, our new Lieutenant Governor, Justin Fairfax, and our Attorney General, Mark Herring. Look with favor upon them, their families, and their administrations. Deal graciously with them and grant them peace. Creator of all life, we pray that you guide our leaders to faithfully serve you by caring for all those who dwell in our Commonwealth. Enable them to see your image in all people. In the face of resurgent and resilient hatred, xenophobia, and racism, embolden them to eradicate bigotry and inaugurate a new era of inclusion and equality. Confronted with unprecedented assaults on the structures of our democracy and the norms that support them, fortify our leaders' resolve to secure, strengthen, and advance the ideals and institutions that are the glory of our Commonwealth and our Republic. May you, who hears the voices of the voiceless and knows the hurt of all hearts, grant our leaders the wisdom to discern the silent agony of the unseen and unheard, the plundered poor and the passed over. Just as you champion justice for the wronged, free the bound, lift up the downtrodden, protect the stranger, and encourage the orphan and the widow, empower them to uphold the cause of the impoverished, the marginalized, the vulnerable, and the oppressed, ensuring equal opportunity and justice for all. In this moment, when the cause of the just is too readily sold for silver, and the needs of the poor are betrayed to benefit the wealthy, give our leaders strength to discharge the duties of their office with honesty and integrity, withstanding the temptations that, as Scripture warns, blind the clear-sighted and subvert the cause of the righteous. God, help us too. Help us remain mindful of the extraordinary gift of freedom, attained by our ancestors at great expenditures of toil and blood, that we have been blessed to inherit. Work through us so that we may dutifully fulfill our responsibilities to one another as a self-governing people. Where we see degradation or persecution, move us to march. Where we see tyranny, rally us to resist. And where we see despair, grant us the audacity to hope. Help us, in the words of our ancient rabbis, to be bold as leopards, light as eagles, swift as deer, and mighty as lions, as we remind our leaders whom they serve and before whom they stand. Help us remember that regardless of the shade of our skin or the place of our origin, regardless of whether we were born in privilege or in poverty, regardless of the anatomy with which we were born, or the language we speak, regardless of our gender identity or our sexual orientation, we are all brothers and sisters, destinies intertwined, called upon by our heavenly parent to safeguard one another and to dwell together in peace. As we leave these hallowed grounds, inspired by this hopeful day, we pray that you ready us to join together in that spirit of brotherhood and sisterhood, bound by common cause and shared destiny, to make justice well up like water and righteousness like an unfailing stream, and to speedily bring about the day when nation will not take up sword against nation and they will never again know war. May the words of our mouths and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable to you, Adonai, our rock and our Redeemer. And let us say, Amen.
The senator from Williamsburg, Senator Mason. As many as favor that motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed will say no. The motion is agreed to. The senator from Roanoke County, Senator Sitterline. As many as favor the motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed will say no. The motion's agreed to. The Joint Assembly is adjourned sine die. Hit the gavel. Please be seated. Please be advised that the House and the Senate will adjourn their respective houses separately to meet again Monday, January 15th, 2018 at 12 noon. Now, on behalf of the General Assembly, it is my pleasure to introduce Marna and Macy, who will perform Light of the Clear Blue Morning, accompanied by Larry Bland and the volunteer choir. I will request that everyone remain seated for the performance and to view the inaugural parade, which will begin immediately after the song.
It's been a long, dark night, and I've been waiting for the morning. It's been a long, hard fight. I see a brand new day dawning. I've been looking for the sunshine. You know I ain't seen it in so long. But everything's gonna work out just fine. Everything's gonna be alright. That's been all wrong. 'Cause I can see the light of a clear blue morning. I can see light of a brand new day. I can see the light of a clear blue morning, and everything's gonna be alright. It's gonna be okay. It's been a long, long time since I've known the taste of freedom. Those clinging vines, they have me bound when I don't need them. I've been like a captured eagle. You know an eagle's born to fly. Now that I've won my freedom, like an eagle, I'm eager for the sky. 'Cause I can see the light of a clear blue morning. I can see the light of a brand new day. I can see the light of a clear blue morning. be alright. It's gonna be okay. I can see the light. I can see the light of a brand new day. Everything's gonna be alright. It's gonna be okay. 'Cause I can see the light of a clear blue morning. I can see the light. I can see the light of a brand new day. Of a brand new day. I can see the light of a clear blue morning. And everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna be alright. It's gonna be okay. 'Cause I can see the light of a clear blue morning.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. I'm your parade announcer, Ellen Qualls, and I'm pleased to welcome you to the 2018 inaugural parade. Today's parade will highlight the talent and diversity of the Commonwealth's people, regions, and geography. We're kicking off with the Virginia National Guard, represented by the Joint Color Guard, led by Brigadier General Walt Mercer and Command Sergeant Major Cheyenne Johnson. The Virginia National Guard is a unique dual-status force with a federal mission to provide a combat reserve to fight our nation's wars, and a state mission to provide a response force that answers the call of the governor to defend the Commonwealth. To commemorate last year's centennial anniversary of U.S. entry into World War I, a color guard of Virginia National Guard soldiers in World War I uniforms is leading the marching formation. Following the World War I color guard are the organizational colors from the Virginia National Guard's deployable major commands, the 29th Infantry Division, the 116th Infantry Brigade Combat Team, the 329th Regional Support Group, the 91st Cyber Brigade, and the 192nd Fighter Wing, and the organizational colors of the U.S. Army, the U.S. Air Force, and the Virginia Defense Force. Virginia Army National Guard aviation crews assigned to the Sandston-based 2nd Battalion, 224th Aviation Regiment are conducting a flyover with UH-60 Black Hawk helicopters. A Virginia National Guard medical evacuation detachment recently mobilized for federal active duty. They joined the more than 15,000 Virginia National Guard soldiers and airmen who have mobilized for Homeland Defense combat operations and peacekeeping and stabilization missions since September 11, 2001. Next, please welcome the Virginia Military Institute Corps of Cadets, with almost 1,500 cadets joining us from Lexington. The Virginia Military Institute develops educated, honorable men and women prepared for the varied work of civic life and ready as citizen soldiers. It is the proud alma mater of Governor Ralph Northam. The last VMI alumnus to serve as governor of the Commonwealth was Westmoreland Davis, who was sworn in a century ago in 1918. The Corps passing in review this morning consists of a regiment of 2 battalions of 9 companies and a regimental band playing VMI Spirit and Shenandoah.
sir. Good afternoon to the VMI Corps Cadets, and thank you all so much for being with us today. To General Benny P., Superintendent of VMI, a 4-star general in the United States Army, thank you for your service to this country and to the Virginia Military Institute. I am proud to be one of you, class of 1981, 1st Battalion Commander, President of the Honor Court. I would not be standing here today if not for the experience at VMI. You are the leaders of tomorrow. I appreciate you being with us here today, and I want my first act as governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia to be directed at VMI. Therefore, by the powers vested to me as the Commander-in-Chief of the Virginia Military Institute Corps Cadets, I grant amnesty to all cadets with penalty tours and confinement. Bravo, Virginia Mill, and may God be with you. Thank you.
Now let's hear it for the Crooked Road Fiddle Army. These 35 fiddlers have traveled all the way from southwestern Virginia, where their mission is to explore and share the musical heritage of the region. The Crooked Road Fiddle Army. Please join me in welcoming the Semper Canine Assistance Dogs from Prince William County. Combat veteran founded and operated, Semper Canine's mission is to enhance the quality of life for wounded, critically ill, and injured members of the U.S. Armed Forces and their families by providing them assistance dogs. Next up, the Virginia Preschool Initiative. VMI works to ensure the Commonwealth's children have the basic requirements they need to establish a solid learning foundation in kindergarten. Leading the students today and throughout the school year is Richmond Director Ron Robertson, who joins us along with teachers, staff, and parents of the Richmond program. Because Virginia is for lovers, let's hear it for the Virginia Tourism Corporation, which promotes and develops the tourism and motion picture industries in the Commonwealth to stimulate Virginia's economy and enhance the quality of life for all Virginians.
He's got a dolphin hat on. You should let him by.
Get excited, people. Next up from Harrisonburg, playing selections from the award-winning film La La Land, are the James Madison University Marching Royal Dukes. Under the direction of Scott Rickers, the Dukes have established a strong tradition as ambassadors for JMU and the Harrisonburg community, both locally and abroad. Folks, we've got lots more. Don't get up now. Coming up next, Equality Virginia. Equality Virginia is a nonpartisan advocacy, outreach, and education organization working to build an inclusive Virginia and advocating for equality for all LGBT Virginians. Give it up for Equality Virginia. And make way for Equality Virginia. Coming right up behind Equality Virginia, we've got Hampton Roads Pride. Hampton Roads Pride is a local organization joining us from Hampton Roads, which works to empower all LGBT and allied people. Accompanying them are Portsmouth Pride, a youth-focused, family-friendly, and community-wide organization celebrating its 3rd year. You're hearing the dulcet tones of the regimental band of Virginia Tech's Corps of Cadets, the Heidi Tidies. Heidi Tidies are playing Tech Triumph, the Virginia Tech fight song. The Heidi Tidies are the Commonwealth's oldest collegiate band. They've been known for almost 120 years as a superlative field band with an unparalleled string of victories, including 129 first-place trophies in 130 competitive parades. Up next, from the University of Virginia, we have The Pride, a student-led lion dance organization. Their mission is to practice, understand, and promote traditional Chinese lion dancing by engaging in competitions, demonstrations, and performances. The Pride. Let's give it up for the Pride. Coming up next, we have NASA with 2 facilities, Langley Research Center in Hampton and Wallops Flight Facility on the Eastern Shore, and a commercial spaceport. Virginia is forging new frontiers in air and space. NASA is partnering with industry and academia to launch rockets and deliver cargo to the International Space Station, and developing new technologies that will take American astronauts beyond low Earth orbit to the moon and then on to Mars. NASA advances in research and technology will continue a legacy of leadership in aviation, exploration, and science for Virginia and the nation. NASA. Folks, my personal parade highlight, Deborah Pratt, the fastest oyster shucker. Ms. Pratt has represented the U.S. 4 times in the oyster shucking World Championships, and in 1997 was ranked 2nd in the world. She is an 8-time state champion who promotes shucking as an important Virginia tradition. Accompanying her is Oysters for Life, an organization that works to develop Virginia's watermen into successful aqua farmers and promotes innovative and sustainable oyster farming. Deborah Pratt. Another important partner in the fight to preserve Virginia's oyster tradition and the ecosystem that makes it possible is the Chesapeake Bay Foundation. Founded in 1967, CBF is the largest independent conservation organization dedicated solely to saving the bay and is leading the charge to restore its rivers and streams, the Chesapeake Bay Foundation. The Virginia Department of Education recognizes outstanding teachers across the Commonwealth each year. Please join me in welcoming our 2017-2018 Teacher of the Year, Michelle Cottrell Williams from Wakefield High School. Michelle's accompanied by several of Virginia's regional Teachers of the Year. Let's give them and all Virginia teachers another round of applause for their important contributions to education. Get ready, folks. The Virginia State University Trojan Explosion. Under the direction of Dr. James Holden Jr., the VSU Trojan Explosion is known as the best band in the CIAA. They're performing Signed, Sealed, and Delivered, I'm Yours by Stevie Wonder. Trojan Explosion. Coming up next, Fishburne Military School Corps of Cadets. Fishburne has been an Army JROTC unit for 99 years and is recognized as an honor unit with distinction. It's the alma mater of the Commonwealth's 65th governor, Gerald Baliles. Military Academy. Next up, we have the Cultural Center of India, Virginia. Culture Center of India, Virginia is a leading nonprofit organization representing Virginia's Indian American community with a mission to promote Indian culture, heritage, and arts in Central Virginia and South Side.
Slagtickering is a Gaswagen. Slagtickering is a Gaswagen.
Woo! Thanks for warming up the crowd with a little Bollywood. Here we have Virginia's only freestanding children's hospital of the King's Daughters, where Governor Ralph Northam provided care to young people for 25 years. CHKD is more than a hospital. It's a dedicated family of pediatric experts and support staff who are improving children's health and our Commonwealth every day. And they've got dogs. Let's give a warm welcome to the Freedom High School Soul Squad. The Soul Squad is the only show-style, high-stepping marching band between Richmond and D.C. They are one of the most diverse bands in the state, with 80% of the band speaking multiple languages and band members representing 14 countries. Today they're performing Perro Caliente, Torch of Liberty March, Michael Jackson's Rock With You, and Treasure by Bruno Mars. The Soul Squad is followed by the Stars of the Pledge of Allegiance, the All Dulles Area Muslim Society Center, Muslim Boy Scouts of America, and Girl Scouts of the USA units. The Adams Center American Muslim Scouts focus on duty to God and country and reaffirm values of leadership, good citizenship, community service, interfaith harmony, and peace to contribute to Virginia and America. You're now hearing the George Washington High School Marching Eagles performing Patriots on Parade, proudly representing the city of Danville, Virginia. Under the direction of Reginald Purvis, the Marching Eagles have consistently rated superior in all marching contests throughout the state of Virginia and North Carolina, and are currently the U.S. Band's Virginia State 5 Open champions. Let's give a warm hand to Mr. Purvis, who's retiring this year after 30 years of service with the Marching Eagles. Now give a warm welcome to the Charlottesville Cardinals, Charlottesville's own nationally ranked wheelchair basketball team. The Cardinals are led by my friend Tom Vandiver and are ambassadors who educate the general public about the abilities of people with disabilities through competitions, performances, and demonstrations. Let's give a hand to the Virginia Women's Institute for Leadership and Mary Baldwin University's marching band. This corps is the nation's only all-female cadet corps, and together with VMI and Virginia Tech, create the Governor's Virginia Corps of Cadets. The VWIL mission is to provide an unparalleled opportunity for young women to develop leadership skills, self-discipline, and strength of character they need to succeed as principled and contributing citizens and leaders in their communities and chosen careers. Folks measuring their body temperature, we've got 2 more units. Please welcome the Fraternidad Cultural Pachamama and the Fundación Socio-Cultural Diablada Boliviana, performing traditional tincus and diabla dances. These 2 organizations are representatives of the broader Bolivian community in Virginia and are dedicated to the preservation and promotion of the cultural and folk heritage of the Republic of Bolivia through dance.
¡Te esperamos! ¡Fuerza, digamos!
The guy at the end looks warm. And finally today we have the St. Andrew's Legion and the Benedictine Cadet Pipes and Drums. Comprised of over 30 bagpipers and drummers from Richmond, Charlottesville, Fredericksburg, and Williamsburg, they work to promote Scottish culture and music in the Mid-Atlantic region. They're accompanied today by the Benedictine student bagpipers. sticking with us. That concludes the 2018 inaugural parade honoring Governor Ralph Northam and our new statewide elected officials. Thanks for joining us. Let's give everyone one more round of applause.
All right.
And ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for sticking with us here as well for our live broadcast coverage of today's inauguration festivities. It's the inauguration of Ralph Northam, the 73rd governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia. I'm Bill Miller here with Craig Carper, news director of WCVE Public Radio here in Richmond. And we're also joined by Soraya Wintersmith up here in the much warmer environment of our broadcast booth. Soraya was with us earlier today in the audience, and glad to have you with us now joining us behind the table. Soraya, this was your first inauguration in Virginia, maybe anywhere. How was it? What did you think?
My first inauguration in Virginia. Bill, I think I'm most struck by the tradition of everything. I think even with the governor, who is now the former governor, sneaking away as the incoming governor begins to give his speech, and then he mentions him, and you look and the chair is empty, because that's part of what the tradition is. I also really like the military regalia and everyone being so formal. There's so much pomp and circumstance, and it's really a joy to watch.
There's a lot of good music here in Virginia, a lot of good mobile music, marching bands and so forth.
Who knew that there was a marching fiddlers group? That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Craig, you're, as we've been saying all along, you're kind of a veteran now of inaugurations. What stood out for this one compared to others that you've covered?
I'm no Larry Sabato, but I've seen 4. So I'd say this was what we've come to expect from Virginia inaugurals. A bit more traditional, It was drier this year than last year, thankfully. It's always cold. Except every inaugural that I had been to has been freezing cold, except for Bob McDonnell, who had weather in the 60s. It's typically a speech that reaches out to both sides of the aisle. I think that's what we heard. But the incoming governor makes a few pleas and appeals to his base. He mentioned in this speech, he mentioned Medicaid expansion. He mentioned protecting access to women's rights to abortion. He mentioned keeping guns out of the hands of those who should not have them. Those were things that got some audible responses from the audience. But if you were looking at the electeds in the stands, you saw that that response was predictably warmer on Ralph Northam's side of the aisle than it was for the GOP.
Just like for inauguration.
Right.
Larry Sabato was with us for the first half of the program today, and like you, he mentioned that this is generally a time for more unanimity, more bipartisanship, and you hit on some of the themes that the new governor mentioned. Did anything surprise you about the speech?
You know, I think maybe the specificity to which he mentioned some of the more hot-button issues it was a bit more. It was a bit more specific than we had previously seen in other years. I think that we'd previously heard about expansion of voting rights. I believe Governor Bob McDonnell referred to that in his inaugural address. But I think that was the thing that struck me.
We noted earlier that Justin Fairfax is the second African American to be elected to statewide office
after Doug Wilder
in Virginia. We still have a ways to go on women being elected to statewide office.
That's right. I believe the closest that we've ever seen. Well, we had Mary Sue Terry, who came in as Attorney General. To date, we have not seen a female lieutenant governor or governor in Virginia.
So that deserves noting. But on the other side, we have more women in the cabinet this time. I guess more women in the cabinet than we've ever had. Not the greatest percentage, but the greatest actual number.
Right. I believe 7 out of or 8 out of 15. Is it 8? I believe it would be 8 out of 15 are women. There was 4 in Governor Belisle's cabinet of 7. So there was a majority female cabinet there, but a smaller number.
So just a minute before we wrap up, but any final words on final changes for the General Assembly this year? We know that the parties are going to be more evenly divided than they have been in a long time. Any other things to look forward to in the weeks to come?
I would just encourage everyone to watch and pay attention with the same energy and excitement that we saw today.
Let's give ourselves a plug. We can tune in to 88.9 WCVE every morning at 7:45 for coverage of the General Assembly, and every evening on WCVE television at 6:58.
Correct.
So please join us for those reports, which we'll be making for you here from your public broadcasting service here in Richmond, Virginia. Thanks so much for joining us. Soraya Wintersmith, Craig Carper, and I'm Bill Miller from WCVE. All of us in WCVE Radio, proud to be here on WCVE TV. Thanks for joining us.
Hardest things to master.
As tensions build,
I know what I'm doing, but I don't necessarily know why I'm doing it.
Some will fall.
It's Bread Week.